In Tibet, China accuses the Dalai Lama of masterminding the violence. He says the allegations are baseless. More fallout from the credit crunch. Chinese troops and armoured vehicles are on the streets of the Tibetan capital Lhasa after the biggest and most violent anti-Chinese riots there for almost 20 years. There are unconfirmed reports of martial law being imposed. Large groups of Tibetans set fire to buildings in the old quarter of the city, chasing out ethnic Chinese traders and looting or destroying their shops. China has accused the exiled Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, of masterminding the protests, an allegation his spokesman describes as baseless. Here's James Reynolds.
On the roof of the world, something dramatic is going on, and China is trying to black it out. But a patchwork of snapshots is now getting through. Some have been sent to the BBC by tourists and campaigners. They show demonstrations in Tibet's capital Lhasa, the most violent for nearly 20 years.
Immediately, police materialized from various sectors of the temple, crackling into radios. The monks were set upon. Several of us saw the monks being beaten to the ground. The monks who were at the edge of this maroon stream of humanity, beaten in the ground. Some of them were kicked in the stomach.
And more than 100 marchers, mostly Tibetan exiles, have been remanded.
This is what's been happening all day here in Beijing. Every time the BBC starts mentioning something about Tibet, Chinese censors black out the channel. And this is what you can see on Chinese state TV, an ordinary discussion about politics, no mention whatsoever of Tibet. From exile in northern India, Tibet's spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, is watching. China accuses him and his supporters of premeditated sabotage. But he's called the protests a sign of the deep-rooted resentment of the Tibetan people.
Even now, after 4 days, we do not know how many were shot, how many are injured, how many are arrested. We don't have the real figure, and this is, I think, a big concern.
And in London, protesters have gathered outside the Chinese embassy. Gordon Brown said that he's very concerned about what's happening in Tibet. But at the moment, there's no talk of Britain boycotting China's Olympics this summer in Beijing. China had seen this year as the perfect chance to show off some fresh images of a new, more confident China. But instead, the world has a darker set of pictures to study. It's not the kind of photo album that China had in mind for 2008. James Reynolds, BBC News, Beijing.
Joining us from Seattle to the Americas. Welcome to BBC World. In all candidness, the Dalai Lama must be supportive of this campaign against China, isn't he?
No, His Holiness has been asking the Tibetans also to show restraint. And in the latest statement he issued, he had urged the Tibetans not to resort to any violence. And His Holiness has always been asking the Chinese government to find a solution to negotiations.
What does he feel? What does he feel about this? Does he feel that this is the Tibetan people at large behind all this, or is it possible that it is just certain elements of the Tibetan society causing this maybe ethnic unrest?
No, I think it's the resentment of the Tibetan people right across Tibet. As you must have noticed in the last few days, the demonstrations have been right across Tibet. And in the last few years, there have been demonstrations, expressions of unhappiness, frustration throughout Tibet. And, for that reason, the Tibet has been almost virtually closed to the outside world. Foreign journalists are not allowed to visit Tibet, meet with the Tibetan people. If it's only a small group of people, then there is no fear there's no reason for the Chinese leadership to
and do you think
having any contact with the Tibetan people in general.
Do you think it is the case that the Tibetans are using this very much now as China approaches the Olympic Games, that they're trying to cause trouble for China?
I think basically, there has been growing frustration on the part of the Tibetans for lack of response to His Holiness's very positive, very constructive initiatives to find solutions through negotiations. And we have said for the last number of years that unless there is a response from the Chinese government, the frustration and the disappointment among Tibetans is growing, and that could lead to more violent expressions of their frustration. And I think this is what exactly is happening.
The Dalai Lama's representative to the Americas. We'll have to leave it there. Tashi Wangdi, many thanks indeed for being with us. Another day, another sign of the troubled global economy. Welcome to BBC World. Why has this violence happened again at this moment? Is it linked to China's hosting of the Olympics, the fact that Tibet wants to embarrass China?
Basically, it's the wrong policies of the Chinese government on Tibet, and also the continued repressive policies that has increased the resentments of the Tibetan people against the Chinese government. And normally Tibetans find a historic day or a historic opportunity and to express their sentiments, and this was the March 10th, the 49th anniversary of the National Uprising Day, where the Tibetan people, especially the several monks, on the 10th of March in the evening, staged a peaceful protest which was joined by the public, and later a series of peaceful protests were undertaken. All of these were severely crushed down by the Chinese authorities, and today all over the world the Tibetan people are very much concerned and worried about the plight of the Tibetan people, especially those who are arrested and imprisoned. The fate of those who are imprisoned is certainly not known, and we have been hearing lots of reports saying that Chinese security forces have opened fire, and even Eyewitness from Tibet has confirmed that they have seen 2 dead bodies on the streets of the LHASA, so which is very much worrying for all the Tibetan people.
Is this violence, though, a widespread belief, or is it just certain groups those who want total independence for Tibet and not just a partial autonomous region?
No, it is the aspirations of the entire Tibetan people, the 6 million Tibetan people. It has nothing to do with a small or a group of people who advocate in defense of Tibet. There are thousands and thousands of Tibetans who have participated not only inside Tibet but over all the world, and especially in India and Nepal, who have been demanding a speedy resolution of the Tibet issue for the benefit of both the Chinese and Tibetan people.
Lobsang Nyingdak, many thanks indeed for being with us on BBC World. Now, another